episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you can not do that, but you can instead do smart, meaningful marketing things. And today, we've talked about pricing on this show before, actually, like fairly extensively. We talk about pricing on the show. And one of the things that always comes up in the pricing conversation is making the offer. Okay. So we can talk and we can go back and forth on all these things about setting the price and what our competitors are doing and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, we really need to make an offer to somebody. And so today we're going to talk about offers. Obviously all these things are all interrelated, but this how we structure offers, how we share offers, how we do our research on offers. You guys tell us if you are watching us live today and you have specific questions about offers, either your own offer or something else, like I see this in the market, and so do I have to do that? Those types of questions. Please feel free to drop them in the chat. And if you happen to be joining us and you're also an expert, like if you're one of the pricing experts or things like that, please feel free to drop your insights and perspectives in the chat as well. The more conversation we can get going between all of us here today, the more robust of a conversation we get to have. And so before we dive too deep into this, you guys know I don't do this show on my own. I always have a lovely guest, and I have a super lovely headphone twin guest joining me today, rocking the headphones. So, Humaira, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of ended up in this zone of aligned offers?
Oh, my goodness. I love that question every time I get it because it kind of reels me back to my origin, right? How I got started and everything. I mean, my background started out as a graphic designer, doing creative services for companies, for, as founders and other solopreneurs. And the evolution today has become all about aligned offers. And it's interesting because when somebody, learns about my background, it's like, how did you make that transition? Like, what does this has to do with creating an offer or product or service, right? But it really, I think everyone goes through this transition in their life, in their business, whatever that is, right? And then you realize you come to a point where you're like, you know what, this is not it. That's not it. Then what is it? You just keep switching and tweaking and pivoting and doing all these things to realize the one thing. And there is no one thing, what I call it. It's the aligned thing, the most sensible thing, the most sustainable thing you can do for yourself, for your life, and for your business. And I think we need people like us, Tracy, who are I like to call it the invisible guides, the guides.
We're not very invisible, though.
We're not very invisible, but we have superpowers, right? We have these powers to kind of be able to tell our client without being mean or nasty about it, but reflect back to them to say, hey, maybe this isn't you. Maybe this isn't the right path for you.
Yeah.
And
I think this is something just a lot of people don't have as a teammate on their team, right? So even when I think about some of the people who've gone on to create really big companies, right? Like the Walt Disneys of the world and the Steve Jobs and these types of people.
Yes.
They have people who are keeping them. I think people throw around the word accountability a lot, and maybe it's lost some of its meaning, but really it's about saying who is in your court to keep you accountable to being you and making the decisions, whether that's decisions or personal decisions, that are what you would do. And then what does that look like from an offer point of view? What does that look like from a price point of view? What does that look like from a social media strategy point of view? Fill in the gap with whatever you want with that once you have the alignment. But it's very easy, especially in today's day and age with all of the content that is created on the internet.
Too much content.
Way too much content. More content. For those, actually, I don't know if anybody is if you're watching live and you've heard me say this before, type it in the chat faster before I finish it. There's more content created on a daily basis than a human brain can process in its lifetime.
Okay.
Not
I was gonna
say
more than my wardrobe, but yeah.
I mean, it depends on how big your wardrobe is. Some people's wardrobes are tiny. But like the fact is, in a single day, the amount of content that is created on the internet is more than my brain can process in my entire lifetime. Not more 100%. Today than I can process today. More than I can process in my entire lifetime. And that's going to happen again tomorrow. And that's going to happen again the next day. And so we actually reach this like point in humanity where we're being forced to filter out information because there's too much information. I can't process all of the information, which then leads to what information am I going to process? So, Humaira, let's talk about this concept of alignment, because I think there's a lot of information in the market about what you should do. So when you are having conversations with people or clients or just your neighbor, right? How does that conversation need to evolve in order for it to get to a place where someone can actually say, yes, I'm aligned with this?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And you know, for everybody has their interpretation of what an aligned offer is, but I'll give you my perspective and my understanding of what an aligned offer truly means. And sometimes people confuse between aligned offer and, it's like a marketable offer, or, it's something that they, put it out there as like a ebook or launch product or service, right? But to me, an aligned offer, think of as like your business core offer. And from that core offer is where we stem the actual signature, whatever the signature solution is that informs the signature offer. Okay. So let me take it back even to a third grade. I'll try this in a third grade level. Everyone we have a culmination of lived experiences in our lives, right? We have turning points. We have the kind of growth that leaves real lessons. And the lesson doesn't stick until we actually remember from those events that has happened in our life, right? So if we start to piece them together, we know we can see the future. We can actually predict the future, where it's going. And a lot of times we're just people that are just living by, and we're just dozing through whatever it's coming at us, right? We're on autopilot.
The hypnotic rhythm.
Yeah, we're on autopilot. You can see that when you walk your kids to school or you're driving. You can see people are just constantly on autopilot. And until something triggers, something happens in your life, you don't stop to think. You don't pause, right? And I'm interested in learning about those turning events that has happened in your life that leaves a lot of different clues that also says something about who you are as a person, right? It also informs the core genius that has always been there, but it's dormant. It's silent because you've never tapped into it.
Right.
Right?
Oh, This is so good because it's making me feel like we're detectives. Right?
We kind of
like,
are. Yeah.
We kind of are, because
Yes.
it's actually funny. I was having a conversation. I was at a conference yesterday and I was having a conversation about the difference between how I see brand and a lot of people treat brand in terms of brand creation. And I was like, I don't actually believe in brand creation. I believe in brand extraction. And so you have a brand.
That's what I say. Genius extraction, genius excavation. Those are the words I use,
Because they're already in there. I don't
Right.
need to create anything.
No.
It's buried deep because there's levels of shoulds that over your
Yes.
career or what have you have built up over this. And in order to
Right.
be successful XYZ, I should this and I should that. And I have to be more extroverted and less introverted. And we get really practiced at being what we think the world is telling us we should be. We have less practice at being who we are, but also these like moments where people are just like, and I'm sure you have this too. Actually, I was at another event this a while ago now, and I was standing in this group. One of the other ladies was asking a new entrepreneur about her business. She asked all the business questions, right? Like,
sure,
target audience, what's your offer, blah blah blah, blah. And I'm like watching her answer these questions, they're like totally disconnected from the answers, right? And I'm like,
yes,
this is so curious because I'm sure you're solving a problem you want to solve, right? I can also tell when people are solving a problem they don't care about solving,
right?
But like, she really cares about this, so she kept mentioning this like mathematical assessment component. She's like an HR consultant, right? But it's this math thing kept coming up, and I was like, "Could you tell me about this like math piece?" Because I remember like I don't really hear HR people talking about that. And then she went off on this like tangent, and her whole face lit up, and her energy was just like,
that's
bam.
That's the spark. Yeah.
Once she was finished, I was like, how many people have you told that part of the story to? And she just looked at me and was like, nobody. Okay, so like all the good stuff, that's where it's in that part. Right? So like let's maybe like focus on that. And like, we can dig in there. But it's also not something you can observe about yourself. Right?
Sure.
Like, this is, I mean, maybe you can, I would say like if you're practiced, you can probably observe it about yourself. But like even me, like going into a networking event, right? Like people experience me and my beingness, but I don't, because that's like me being me. It just feels like I'm not doing anything special. I just am like being myself. And then people are like, wow, but you're like this and you do this and you do, and I'm like, I can do things by just being who I am. And when you get that, I mean, again, like we're here to talk about offers. Yes, we're here to talk about offers, but this is about like the alignment at the like core level. Use that word, Humaira, core, right? Like, and so then when I'm out in the world making offers to people, I can feel really good about that. I can know that that's something I would do. It's not just some program I signed up for told me to structure my program this way, and everybody structures their program the same, and we all go to market and look exactly the same.
Yeah, and
confusing to me.
And then from an audience perspective, right? They'd like, oh, I've seen that before. I've heard this before. And there may be versions of that people hear the same thing. But again, if it's missing a flavor, even this Myra flavor or Tracy flavor inside of whatever that is, then it's really hard to latch on to what you're building.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's just, I mean, I'm a marketer. I always look at this and I think like, I feel like the number one rule of marketing is don't look the same as everyone else, right? Like everyone now, so especially in the tech scene, talking about this red ocean, right? Like all these other businesses
yes.
that do the same thing that you
Right.
do, right? So try and
Right.
find blue ocean. And like,
Mhm.
yeah, good, go try and find a blue ocean. But like at the same time, there's
Mhm.
only so many things that people need, right? And there's a lot of people, if you look at like the fintech arenas and things like that, right? There's a lot of people creating solutions because there's gaps
Of
in
course.
the current solutions, right? So that's good.
Right.
But yes,
Yeah.
now you're going into a big sea of competitors who have kind of been doing this, but nobody's been doing this. So, like, how do I stand out from that?
Correct.
And doing like the exact thing. I've had people tell me in my face, seriously, that their strategy is to keyword optimize strategy, keyword optimize their
Yes.
website for the exact same keywords that their competitors use. For one,
Right.
what are we optimizing in that
Right.
scenario? Can we take the word optimization out of there because it's not optimization. We're just like putting ourselves into a competitive scenario when maybe we don't have to be in a direct competitive scenario. Not that we're not serving the same industry
Mhm.
or client. This happens with coaches all the time, right? Or marketing consultants, right? Like there's a lot of marketing consultants and people choose different ones because different ones feel like they will resonate with you and other ones don't. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I mean, it reminds me of when I was everyone starts out as a freelancer, doing projects based, right? Sending proposals and things like that. A lot of my work started out as like, I am doing the thinking for you.
Right.
You hire me to think for you, so you don't have to think at all. Okay? So, guess what happens? Then you become the expert who tells the client, here's what you're supposed to do, here's what you need to do.
Mhm.
But to me, that's not a sustainable model in
No,
the end.
agreed.
Okay, because if your client is doing zero thinking, that's not partnership.
All right.
That's not partnership.
Amen.
That is literally like, here, go do this, and expect things to happen, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that's what I did for a number of years, where it was a done for you model. Okay, now I propose a new model, which I think everybody's embracing, and you can see the transitions already happening. It's done with by you model. Okay, meaning we're doing it as we are unfolding it,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And this model is here to stay because
Yes.
we as humans, we're meant to connect and problem solve together, you know?
Yeah.
And when we're solid as a creative, we love to think, okay? We love to overthink, we love to analyze, we love to just be in our thoughts and do this, right? And it's comfortable because I am just going to do it for you, right? And that means there is not going to be a lot of resistance with the client. We don't have to face like why they're not doing it or what strategy implementation that needs to be done, right?
Mhm.
So you can avoid those tough conversations, whereas the tough conversations is what we need to have more and more.
Well, okay. So actually, let's dive into this a little bit because well, I feel like you and I are very similar in like how we approach and how we like
Sure.
to participate with a client. And I was having
Yes.
a conversation with a friend of mine who is looking at transitioning into consulting,
Hmm.
primarily because so they are like employed in an organization right now. And the
Right.
reason they want to look at consulting is that so that when I make recommendations and the
Hmm.
company doesn't do anything about them, I can just peace out and get paid and walk away. And I was
Huh.
like, I, I watched my dad do that for years. Right? He's been a consultant for most of my adult life. Um, and there was always something about that I was just like, why would you waste your time? Right? Like, I get like, and once you've been a consultant in the industry, you're getting paid like, I'm talking like hundreds upon hundreds of dollars an hour for
Yes.
your expertise.
Expertise, right.
And like, it's nice to get paid for that, but isn't
Mhm.
it nicer for someone to use it? And so I in my journey, I have done consulting as well. And this was the thing that I was like, I throwing it back to aligned offers, right? Like, I can't do that. I hate doing that. I hate going into an organization where I know I'm going to do this whole deep dive and figure out how to connect the dots for all of these marketing things. I'm going to deliver it to you. You're going to be super excited, and then you're going to do nothing with it.
No.
Like, what? As far as I'm concerned, I wasted my time, and I am a mom, and I volunteer on 3 boards, and I coach my local fastball team. Like, I don't have time for that.
Oh, wait, stop. Are you venting right now, or I'm just
I'm just saying, I'm trying to create an understanding of alignment, because I'm not saying that that's wrong, right?
Right.
There's lots of people who do that, and
yes,
feel good about doing it. I gave them my insight. That's all I can do here. Like, and I'm good. And I move on to the next project. And that's great. But I can't do that. I could not do that. And so from a revenue model perspective, I could do that. Right? Yes.
And it keeps you, it probably will keep you at a healthy revenue if you want, for a while.
Right.
But then what I call it, the other part of your life's dips. Okay, you run out of time with doing things that you're creative at, that actually fuels your energy, right? Spending quality time doing things that you love outside of the business, right?
Yeah.
And to me, again, that agency model where people say that, oh, you can outsource 90% of your work and still build out a very great, revenue model. Fine. But even then, I've watched it for the last 10 years. And how many agency owners, founders that I've seen, they've built it, they crashed everything, they slashed everything, and then start from zero. Why? Yeah. I'm like, I caught that. I was able to see that pattern, and I'm like, you know what? I have no interest in building a creative agency. Yes, being a solopreneur is not the ideal for everything either, but I get to choose who I work with. I get to be aligned with what I want to create. Right?
Yeah.
And you may not have that luxury when you're doing in the beginning done for you service model, right?
Right.
But my argument is don't stay there. Don't stay there too long, because that model eventually will be burning out.
Well, and it's really interesting for me too, because that journey is very common, especially for marketers.
Very common.
Right? So
yes.
People, they get a job, they work a few years, and then they're like, I can do this on my own, right? So I'm gonna go and
I'm not saying it's wrong either. I'm just saying, yeah.
And again, this is the whole concept about aligned, right? Like, there's not, it's tricky
right or
in this
wrong
conversation, because Humaira and I are very similar on how we interpret things, but that doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. But also it's interesting, because I'm really exploring this. I've been doing some more work with the University of Calgary. And so these young graduates going through their marketing program, and then they're like, okay, what do I do? And there's more of them that are going directly into freelancing than when I graduated, which was you graduate and you get a job. That is what you do. There is still a market expectation that done for you services will be available, right? So I just need somebody to do my social media for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think what people are missing in that part of the conversation is because we have the done for you services and there's people who have the skills to be able to execute that. If you are someone who is out there looking for that, there will always be a market for it.
Always.
If there are people wearing shoes, then there's always going to be a market for shoes. Right?
It's the same with design services. You'll always find people to do it for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
And with graphic design in particular, I think it is a little bit more like freelanceable.
Yes.
Because it is a very specific skill set, right? Do I have enough business as a business owner to have a full-time graphic designer on my team? Most people don't, right? Like, unless you're the size of Apple and Disney and these types of guys, full-time graphic design is probably not a role that you would have in your organization. And so and that makes sense. At the same time, and I look at a lot of, let's look at entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, right? So then now the narrative plays into them in that same way. I am a technical founder, or I am an HR expert, or I'm a finance expert. Right? Like, I don't want to do my marketing, right? Like, that sounds terrible. So I will outsource that.
Makes sense.
And it does, except when you dive down into the depth of it. So when you ask if someone's like, I just need to outsource my social media. Okay, why? A lot of times that comes back to because I have to do social media. And so then there's another layer of the conversation there about, why do you think you need to do social media? Go. Because I've been told that. Right? Yeah. I've been told I need to post on social media every day.
Right.
Yep.
And that digital presence is important, which, we all know that, yes, it's important.
Well, and even in those scenarios,
again, why?
Digital presence is important. Okay, to who? Right? Because somebody who is cleaning out gutters in the neighborhood, is there digital?
Yes.
Does it?
Right.
Maybe not, right? Like, it probably makes a lot more sense for you to just go print some lawn signs than it does for you to build up a profile on Instagram, right? Like, there's things that make sense and there's things that don't make sense. And I think the tricky bit about the free done for you is just that you may not be getting those questions thrown back at you as the decision maker. If you've already decided that's what you need, I just need to optimize my Instagram. Okay, well, there's people out there who can, quote unquote, optimize your Instagram. Problem is, if you're using the word optimize again and you don't know for what
you're optimizing for,
then that person is just going to use a basic template and make you look like everybody else. So if that's what, and these are the layers that I think that are not necessarily being uncovered when people are just jumping into the done for you services. And that is actually a decision maker, decision point, right? Like, am I going to just say like, yes, I want to outsource this. Yep. Go good. And not want to think about it. Well, if you don't want to think about it, why is it important to your business? Right? And I'm not trying to blow up the freelance industry. I just want people to be very cognizant about what they're doing, because also your freelancer is not going to be able to execute for you if you don't have that level of clarity as to why you're doing the thing.
Well, and by the way, this is nothing different whether you're a solopreneur or a large size organization. Right. We see this across the board. Okay. I've even worked with larger organizations and still see that same issues where we don't understand the golden thread.
Right.
What's the thread that's connecting to all of this, right? Mm-hmm. And everything's sort of a reactive mode. We need to make a decision now so we have results tomorrow. Right. And I'm sure you see that with what is the marketing ROI is going to be for this kind of campaign. Can we see the results, and
we want to see the results in 5 minutes, but we don't want to take 5 minutes to plan out how we might want to intentionally get results?
I think, listen, I here's the thing, right? That notion, I'm sure that I don't care what profession you're in, everybody faces that problem.
Mm.
So it's a ripple effect across the industries, not just like one industry.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Everybody is in a rush, everybody wants to get things done. We're in a speedy environment where we just like to microwave things, you know? And one of the things that I found with an aligned offer, you can't microwave that offer. You
Mm.
actually have to go through the process to understand what are the most potent insights that's going to be transferable to another human being,
Mm.
right? So that offer might not convert tomorrow, but it's going to live with you. Like I have clients who've come to me after 2 years and saying, you were right. You were right. What I'm building today is so much more enjoyable,
Mm.
so much more like it's expanded into these more offers that I never imagined,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It's more sustainable as
Yes,
well.
right.
Yeah.
And the reason is that we took the time, we slowed down, we looked at what are the things, what are the pieces that, is like, is that something that came out of like external influences, or is it from this internal clarity that was needed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's just the way, I hate to say it, I hate when people say it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is, and let's just, that's how the world works. Well, it will keep working until you stop to think, right? It will stop until you make it stop, right?
And that's what I mean when I come back to the, like, at the end of the day, this is the, like, decision maker's decision, because
Yeah.
you can go out to the market and you can say, like, I'm going to sign up for this program. They're going to give me an offer, right? I'm going to run with that offer. Honestly, I've done this, right? When I
Yeah.
was new in my business, I signed up for this program to help you build your coaching business. And
Yes.
what they did was they taught everyone the same system. Every single person, no matter who you were, no matter what you were trying to sell, no matter what, same thing, right? And people, and they're like, step 3 is to get your new personal brand photos done and pay like an additional. You paid $12,000 for this program, and now you're supposed to pay $3,000 for a professional photographer. And like most people invested like 20.
But you don't have a customer yet.
No customer, and no confidence, I think,
Right.
is the also important thing. So when we talk about aligned offers, and tying this back to where I like kicked off with, like, how the offer always comes up when we talk about pricing, is that if you have something that you're quote unquote supposed to sell and you don't like it, how often do you think you're going to make that offer to a potential customer? You will not do it. You won't do it.
I mean, I'm sure you know this as a marketer. It's already hard enough for solopreneurs and, like founders to market.
Mm-hmm.
Like the word marketing is probably, it itches. Like,
it's
oh my God, it's terrifying. I don't want to market. If somebody could just pay me, through invisibly, like just see a few of my content and decides to just become a client, that will be great.
But they didn't even enjoy creating the content either. So, like, what are they supposed to see?
Right. But, listen, I say this with love and grain of salt because I've been through it. We've all been through it. But it's one of those things where it's going to get harder. It's only going to get harder. Like, if your intention is to keep going, and the business is not for 5 years, let's hope that this business is going to last more than 5, 10, 15, 20 years, then we got to figure out a sustainable model. that works
Right.
for you.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I see this, and I don't know if you see this, like, let's start out with a low ticket offer,
Mm.
one-on-one sessions, things like that, which is fine. Again, if you stay there too long, then one, it doesn't really captivate the true expertise, the value that somebody has to
Mm.
offer,
Yeah.
right? And that's around a core aligned offer where we can suss out the actual signature program, whatever that is. From there we could say, okay, a 6-month thing or a community membership makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But we got to get to the root of what is that core offer, right? What is the thing that informs, that will support the business model long term?
Hmm. Well, and I think this is really interesting. So I was talking to a friend last week who was talking to has a startup and was talking to investors. And it's a platform, so it's got a subscription based revenue model. And the investor had said, you need to like start generating revenue with consulting. And I was like, this is curious to me because if the goal is to generate revenue from the subscription model,
Right.
why would they focus their efforts on consult? Like consulting is not investable, right? Like now you're telling me that like instead of
Yeah.
focusing on building out a platform that would be investable and has infinite revenue potential,
Mhm.
I should distract myself by focusing on consulting, which I could do. I could do today, get a consultant, but it has nothing to do with the platform, right? So it's interesting. I bring that up because one, there is a power dynamic between like investors and startups, right? So like one has money, one doesn't. And so
Right.
it's like very much a sales and marketing role trying to get money from investors. And
Right.
when somebody who seems to have the upper hand in the power dynamic, which
Mhm.
also might be a marketing quote unquote expert,
Mhm.
tells you something, I think what has become common practice is for people to turn off their feeling about that and say, well, that person's the expert. They know better. I
I
should
should
just
just listen. Yeah.
listen and
Yeah.
do that. And
Right.
then that is one of the things that commonly, again, not I don't believe in absolutes, but that takes people away from their like innate alignment with that. Because even me going through that program where we were all trained on the same model, I was doing it and I'm a very good student. So I did it as it was assigned. And I was just like, I would never do this, right? Like, it's
There
not
you
what
go.
I
Right.
do.
Yeah.
And the tricky bit about that is quite often, then we don't know what we would do. We
Right.
just don't know we wouldn't do that.
Right.
And that's where that's like that extraction, the expedition,
Discovery and all that.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
now we go digging, right?
Yes.
Now we're detectives and we're also archaeologists. Right? Now we go
I
digging
love it. Yeah.
to figure it out because
Right.
there's something in you that's saying that's not what I would do. Let's figure out what that is and let's tap into that and then
Mhm.
harness it into what we are going to do and
Mhm.
then bring it to the world. And that will also evolve, right? Like you've mentioned that a couple times too already,
Of
is that
course.
like
Yeah.
none of these
Right.
things are permanent, right? If you choose an offer, you choose a pricing strategy today, that
It will
doesn't mean
change.
that a year from now it can't be different.
Of course. Yeah. And something I want to add to that, what you said, is that marketing expert, whatever they said. Now,
Mm.
again, any of these people that we hear experts talking about, because they're speaking from their expertise, their experience, their life lessons, things like that, right?
Right.
But I think what I'm seeing in the gap that is that contextual awareness. Like if you're not aware of your own context, how that integrates, how that intersects with the person asking me to do, then it's always like, okay, then maybe I should just do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And then I come back to like,
Mhm,
who do you have on your team like
mhm.
asking you the question, is
Right.
that what you would do? Because it is reasonable to think that, like, I don't have any marketing experience. This person has 20 years of marketing experience. They must know better than me what to do.
Sure.
And like, yeah, granted, I know a lot more about marketing than
Right.
somebody who is an engineer who is creating a business for the first time. Absolutely, I do. What
Right.
I don't know about is engineering and the problem that you're solving, right? So, like, you saw that problem in your industry
Bingo.
because you're an engineer,
Right.
not because you're a marketer. I don't need you to be a marketer. I need you to be an engineer. Now I
Right.
need you to be able to explain to me, like, what is this? Right? Like, what is that?
Yes.
And how do you like to share
Yeah.
that? Do you like to speak on panels? Do you like to write research papers? Like,
Right.
what is your way of expressing this?
Yes.
Because then a talented marketer can take that expression and harness it into other things, right? You wrote this research paper. Let's turn that into some blog posts. Let's turn that into some social media content, right? Like, you
Right.
don't have to do anything you wouldn't do. And then a marketer can take that and harness it. But you still need to be able to like express that in the way you would express that. And it's inherently different for every single human on the planet.
And that blueprint, that initial, personalized blueprint is what can make other experts' lives so much easier,
Yes.
right?
And get the results that you want.
Get the
Like,
results that you want.
all
Yeah.
of the people want, like, people who are coming to help you do graphic design or SEO
Yes.
or email campaigns or any of those things, they want to get results for you. But unless they have that like core truth,
Yeah.
and they can't really. And then we, a lot of times we think we know that, right? We know that this is what it is. This is our ideal client profile. This are our values. This is our brand voice. It's all in our brand guidelines. Just like make it happen. Except like there's a disconnect between the
Yes.
document and the lived values. And again, like, regardless of whether you're an organization or a solopreneur, this can happen. Okay? It's more likely to become more disconnected the more teammates that you have, unless you're very intentional about maintaining that as you grow.
Yeah.
But like, this is just a document. This doesn't mean anything, right? Like,
it really doesn't. And
unless
it's
it's a reflection of you, unless it's an
yeah.
authentic representation of what is happening in your business today.
Well,
Otherwise,
even
it's
if
just
it's
a piece of paper.
yeah. I mean, even if it's an authentic reflection of you, I think of it as like, if you go to a trainer, let's say a personal trainer, the personal trainer will give you like, okay, based on your body weight, based on your composition, you need to drink X amount of water, okay? And you need to, let's say these type of meals, you should focus on macro and not, whatever this nutrients that you need to not put in your body, because your body is designed to have certain type of fuel, right? And he can give you a perfect laid out plan. But at the end of the day, you still have to internalize that plan and put it in practice, right? Because our brain doesn't know the difference between what has been said and what needs to be done.
Right.
And I say this even for myself. Like, I hired a Notion consultant to help me organize my system and my thing. And, building it was not the hard part.
Right.
It's the actual doing it and following through my own words and actions was the hardest.
Well, and I think again, like, people forget that what makes the action easy is that you kind of wanted to do it in the first place. Right? Right. So like, I use my Noom journey as an example on this all the time, because I'm sure there's like lots of people. Noom is like a healthy eating app. I'm sure there's lots of people who sign up for it and have no results, right? I'm sure there's lots. I signed up for it because my son asked me to chase him, and I said no. And in that moment, I was like, but I want to. My whole body is saying, no, I don't want to chase you, but I do want to chase him. I want to be able to chase him. And so like, I need to figure out like what's going on with my energy and all of these things. And so like, I was Duolingo advertised it enough times for me to be like, hey, it's got a
I'll finally buy
trial. Yes. I'll try it, right? And it's all like mindset based and stuff. So it like works really well for me because I understand the mindset components already. But more importantly, I have my reason for doing it that doesn't have anything to do with deprivation of candy or like having to hit a certain number on the scale or any of those. This is about energy and this is about this. I'm going to experiment with stuff until I figure out what optimizes my energy. And because I knew why I was doing it, I can stay dedicated to the process for coming on a year now. And now it feels easier. It feels like something I would do because it is something I would do. So we think about these things. I even think about, I did a post about this a while ago about my daily walk, right? Like I do my daily walk at 5 o'clock in the morning because that feels good to me. Yes. Would that feel good to all people? No, absolutely not. And so like I could come out here and be like, the thing that will make you most successful in life is to go for a walk at 5 o'clock in the morning. Because
your content will be so much better if you do this. Yeah.
Well, you're right. Yeah. Just wake up at 5 and then create content. Right. This works for me because it's my thing I would do. And so if we're in that scenario and we're getting actually, and I would say specifically, if you've gotten like multiple rounds of engagement with people, marketing consultants, business consultants, whatever, and you keep feeling like what you're getting is not what you're expecting, that's probably a you thing. And like taking away the ego and saying like, okay, there's information here, right? Like, how do I dig into what I'm doing, why I think I need to do it, where I get my information from, where I get my energy from, and I can start to uncover some of these things, which is also more easily done with a coach because they can help keep you accountable and also see things that you don't see. But like the answers are in you, they're not in someone else. And so long as we're like, I just need the person who has the answer for me, but it's not a thing. So you can keep looking. You just will spend your entire life looking for that. And it's pretty exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why we're seeing, maybe, I don't know about you, but I'm noticing there's a bit of a change and evolution, even in like people who have built their personal brands 5 years ago. They're saying what we're saying now, and I'm like, duh,
But I mean, it also, everyone's on their own.
Everyone's their journey. Yeah.
So in order to create an aligned offer or in order to create an aligned anything, you have to go on the journey of figuring out what is aligned with you. And there's more things that are misaligned than are aligned. And it can feel like, I was talking to someone about this the other day. I'm like constantly pivoting. I feel like I'm constantly pivoting. No, you're in the figuring out mode. Right?
Yeah.
In figuring out mode, we are learning and testing and growing and evolving. And the faster we can do that, the faster we can get to something that feels aligned. But then 10 years from now, we're going to know a whole bunch of other things. We're going to be experiencing new stuff, new economic conditions, new personal conditions that weren't relevant when I created that original one. And so now let's look at this. And this is how most businesses end up growing, right? Say like, okay, well, we've been doing this. This is now our
Right.
core offering. We're probably not going to turn off our core offering, but what else? Like now we've seen this in the industry. What can we do to address that? How can we layer that
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
And also then there's a different conversation between like, we have to layer something on because we have to be able to upsell. That's different than saying like, okay, hey, we have evolved and now we can also provide support in this arena. How can we connect the dots for people and do both? That the difference is not in what the world sees. The difference is in how you feel about what you're offering to the world.
Yeah. And a lot of times when I am closely working through those stages where somebody has actually come to me after pivoting many times, offering different things to different people, right? That's another thing. And it's all a symptom of not having that core clarity.
Right.
And again, I'm not discouraging that you need to be lost in order to be found.
Right.
Okay. I think we have, as creative, I've always credited the fact that, yeah, do that. Sometimes you have to do a bunch of different things to figure out what is the thing, right?
Right.
But also, there's two things I know that we don't have as solopreneurs: time, money. We're always tapped out, either one of those, right? And not to mention our energy. We think we have unlimited source of energy, but we really don't.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless very clearly, this comes back to the personal clarity of how you
Yeah.
create energy, right?
Yes.
But if we are already feeling time and budget poor, we haven't gone through the process of figuring out how we build energy, likely.
Yeah, precisely. And the other thing is that, for me, and when I'm talking to them, I can see it, and that's one of the, oh gosh, it's one of those things like, a doctor can't operate their own leg kind of thing,
Right.
And I see where their genius lies. Like, there are people who are brilliant at putting a team together.
Mhm.
There are people who are geniuses around, systems, and that's where they live. That's where they thrive. But if I try to do what Tracy is doing, like, let me become a marketing expert, I could probably learn or maybe read a few books over the years to get to that. But there's always going to be this inkling, this chase inside that I'm doing something that I truly don't want,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's where I'm trying to get at. Like, an aligned offer is something that you're excited to build with your clients. You're excited to offer. You're excited to, and it's not to mention that you won't have those days.
Right.
Okay. I think if you're a business owner, by default, you will have those days where you don't want to market, you don't want to talk about yourself, you don't want to create the transformations for other people, right?
Mhm.
But I think if there is a way you can bring back yourself to it, you've given yourself the tool now.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Do you know what I
And
mean? Yeah.
yeah, Evan has a really great comment here about how clarity is blocked when you're approaching your offer from a place of lack. In order to
Yes.
bring an abundance mindset, the offer
Nailed
needs to
it.
come from a sense of purpose and alignment. And one of the things that came out, you used the word chase, and this is something that I see all the time. And the way I like to reframe it is like, well, instead of feeling like you're chasing, what would it
Yeah.
look like for you to lead? And so you
Yes.
are solving
Yeah.
problems here. What does it look like for you to lead in this like battle against the mission to fight
Yes.
these problems, right? Like, what if
Correct.
you were leading a troop of people into battle against this problem? What would
That you
that look
believe
like?
in. That you
Right.
believe in. Yes.
Instead, and let's not turn that into wars and like whether or not that's actually a problem. A conversation for a different show. But like, what
Right.
does that feel like to lead versus what does it feel like to chase? Because most of us have experience, whether it's me chasing my son on a scooter, right? Like you always feel like I'm putting out so much effort and I'm not getting where I'm going and I can't win the race. And we have this lack mindset versus what does it look like to lead? And what do I want to lead? What do I even want to lead here? And can I make space in my mind for me to lead and everybody else to continue existing? All my competitors exist. They don't have to go out of business. I don't have to steal all their clients, right? Like I'm going to lead this and this, hey, maybe my competitors want to come along and we end up in collaborating in really cool ways. But again, that alignment is just like, it's a you activity. The offer is output. And going into figuring out what is aligned with you is what I consider a very meaningful input. Okay, Humaira, we could talk for a very long time.
Yes, we could.
We are time for today. So if people are interested in learning more about you and how they might be able to work with you to create an aligned offer for themselves, where is the best place for them to find you?
Well, it's pretty easy. All they have to do is click on my profile and there are links. You know, I have done as much as possible to make sure that the links are accurate, they're working, and you can book a call. Like, to me, I don't have, upsell, downsales, sideways, any of that. I don't have any of that, which I was at one point convinced that I need to have those things.
You mean you don't need to have a tripwire?
Tripwire, blah, 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 sales page that puts you in this like endless funnel, and after 7-8 years of going through so much of that BS, I think having a plain conversation with somebody, just a honest, solid conversation is everything,
Agreed. So you guys connect with Humaira, absolutely. Especially if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can just click on her name in the post for this session and go right to her profile. And get into the conversation, like stay in the conversation. The thing I say about the show, right? Like whether it's aligned offers in particular or a like bigger alignment in general that you're searching for from a business point of view, stay in the conversation. Talk to Humaira, talk to me, talk to each other in the chat, right? Like don't let it be your last conversation because alignment isn't a light switch that we can just turn on. It's something that is dug out. Which means you might have to get a little dirty. But that's fun, right? Kids love that. But we go back to our kid experience of that and just get excited about doing that discovery and digging in the dirt. I know I'm excited to do it. I know Humaira is excited to do it.
Yeah, I'm always like, who's the next person I can dig?
Yes. So if you'd like to get dug, make sure you have a conversation and connect.
In a gentle way.
Yeah. With that, my friends, thank you for showing up for this uniquely scheduled episode. We'll be back at our regular time schedule on Tuesdays next week. And until then, permission to do you. Bye, everybody.